But this really is one of the centerpieces of where you can start to automate, use workflows to deliver not just actual items, but there could be services, there could be any kind of request that your end users want to have fulfilled by some of the people in your organization. Okay, so we're going to have a look at an example for Cloud Dimensions where we're going to provide a new iPad mini. We'll put that onto our service catalog in the hardware section, and in the next section we will tweak an existing workflow so that we can fulfill that request and deliver that requested item. Okay, so that is the plan for the rest of the afternoon. Let's kick off with having a look at Service Catalog. Okay, so you may already have seen the baseline Service Catalog. Okay, so this is our one-stop shop for ordering goods and services through your ServiceNow instance. Okay, so we can set up as many categories as we like. They will contain catalog items. Okay, so catalog items could be, as I say, hardware items. They could be other kinds of peripherals. They could be tangible things. Catalog items can also be what's known as record producers. These are just going to insert records into any table that you want in the system and usually kick off some kind of fulfillment workflow. So perhaps somebody would like to request a new knowledge base. In my own group within ServiceNow, Education Services, we are able to request new roles on certain instances through the Service Catalog. Okay, another out-of-box example is submitting an incident. Okay, so you can ask for people to give ideas if you're talking about demand management and project management. All of these things are possible via the same mechanism of using our Service Catalog. So think of it as a one-stop shop. Okay, let's just have a quick jump onto the training and see this. So it's going to be visible under our self-service. So our end users can see this. Okay, so all those people who are not requiring a fulfiller license can still give them access to Service Catalog, where they can access services and they can order goods. Let's have a look at this. Can we help you? And some examples here of what I mentioned earlier, record producers. And one of the things we encourage in ServiceNow is automation. So we have create incident here. So employee self-service. Obviously, this saves somebody phoning the help desk. We simply describe our incident. Okay, so I'm just going to put a description of the issue in there. And notice already searching our knowledge base. So again, this is an example of what we would call incident deflection. It's something that occurs again and again. Why not create a knowledge article? Educate your end users. Right, read that. Maybe it's going to help me to resolve that. In the event that that doesn't work, I can just submit this and it will create an incident record. Okay, so that's why these things are known as record producers. So in the background, it's going to map the urgency and the short description onto the appropriate fields within the incident form. If I want to actually order some items, let's go to hardware here. Well, I've got typical catalog items, and this is really trying to give a bit of a typical consumer experience here. Let's have a look at this developer laptop. So we have a shopping cart. All of these can be configured, guys. Don't have to have prices in there. You can show and hide any of these pieces. And in order to describe the features of this laptop, I have what's known as variables here, where I can have variables to describe software that I want, any additional requirements, and then place my order. Okay, as soon as I place the order there, any workflow that has been set up by the admins will begin, and immediately I will have my workflow stages indicated to me here. Okay, so I can see that is waiting for approval. So this feedback is really useful because, again, it's going to stop end users phoning up every day and saying, where's my new laptop? They can see it progressing through as these different stages of the workflow are completed. Okay, so that is an example of an item. Let's go and have a look at a couple more of these slides, and then we'll see how we can set these items up and associate them with workflows. So we can support multiple catalogs, also worth noting. And the major components there are the items themselves. So the one we just looked at was the laptop. Record producers for mapping what the end user fills in the form onto a record in a table. And typically that might then kick off a workflow for whatever process is based on that table. Variables, providing those questions, allowing the end user to specify exactly how they want their item to be configured. If you've got similar items with the same variables, you've got variable sets. So these are modular sets of variables. You don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. You can reuse them. So if you're talking about laptops, typically CPU, how much storage you want, screen size, etc., you could have a variable set that you could use against all of those. And then last but no means least, on the list here are workflows. We know that they're not specific to Service Catalog. These are available against any process. We've already seen them used on knowledge base, but definitely one of the key features of Service Catalog is that we can configure a workflow to deliver these items. And again, this is going to increase delivery times, reduce dissatisfaction, hopefully improve the way you get things fulfilled. Okay. So let's drill into a bit of detail here. Okay. What do we actually create when somebody orders something on the Service Catalog? I'll just jump back. Let's just check if I've still got that screen. Just order another of these. If I did this in real life, I'd probably get a complaint from my manager ordering a couple of laptops like that. But luckily, this is only a training example. But what I want to show you here is we have a request number. There you are, 1000-002. Let me just click on that. So we create a record in the Service Catalog request table. Okay, when we create or we order something on the Service Catalog. Okay, now within that request, think of the request. We're going to use an analogy here with Amazon or any other online retailer. This is a bit like the basket. So within this basket, at the moment, I have one item. So I have requested item number here, RITM 0010002. That's the actual laptop. Okay. So we have a one-to-many relationship between request and requested item. So think of it as shopping basket and items in the shopping basket. Okay, so obviously that's how we allow people to order multiple items within a single request. Okay, so you can have a workflow. We've actually got a workflow associated with the request itself. And typically these are approvals according to how much money was involved in all of those items that you just ordered. Okay, so come back to that in a moment. We can also have a workflow associated with the item itself. In this case, it's a laptop. Clicked on that. Here are the variable values that I chose. And we might have an approval to get this delivered. That's going to have to be specific to the item, right? Because getting this developer laptop ready, it's not going to be the same as getting an iPad ready. So it would involve different tasks. Those tasks can be created in the workflow for each different item. Okay, so just go back and see this on this slide. Let's leave Record Producer for the moment. Just jump down and look at these catalog item records. So each catalog item is going to be part of a request. So we've got a single request number here, REQ, and that contains these two RITM catalog example numbers. Then this first item just got one task. Maybe it is simply go and get the iPad mini and deliver it to the end user. Okay. This task here for this item here requires two tasks. So maybe this is get the laptop, configure it, install Photoshop, next task, deliver it to the person who ordered it. Okay. So you can see how the requested items can have their own specific tasks associated with them. Okay, so you can see how the workflow is going to build out and allow us to work through a series of tasks to deliver that item. And each item might have different tasks in order to fulfill it, right? Hopefully that makes sense. In terms of the record producer, on the other hand, all we're doing is creating a record in a table. Okay, so it says the table selected by the developer. Obviously, they're talking about you guys, sysadmins, or developers who are creating these record producers. Okay, so this does not require scripting. You simply map fields from the record producer to a target table. Okay. So when you order something on Service Catalog, you generate various numbers. And we just saw that briefly, where we have the catalog item ordered. Let's say, got an example here of a manager ordering 2 new computers. PC1, which is a standard desktop, PC2 is a notebook. That is all done with a single request. Okay, so basically this manager put both of these items into a basket and then clicked order now. That generated a request number. There was a related list of 2 request item numbers, and then each requested item has got its own Service Catalog task records now, and in the workflows we can decide which group is going to receive that task in their My Work queue. Okay, so this is all automated. All the strings are being pulled behind the scenes by workflow. So we will assign that task. When that task is complete, it could be a concurrent task. It could be one task occurring after the other. Once we close that task, this other task can be done. So maybe it was order equipment, configure equipment. And then on our notebook, again, we've got a couple of tasks associated with that. Okay, so written onto the task will be some instructions on how to do the tasks. Okay, so once you've set up these workflows, associated them with items, you should have consistency in the way that these things are carried out, because people should follow the instructions on the task record that is assigned to them, and then they can just work through the queue of tasks for those requests coming in. Just got a question from James. Can you limit the amount of similar items that can be requested under one request? That is a really good question. Let's just have a look. I go to Service Catalog. Oops. The shorter answer will be yes, you will be able to do this, James. Out of box, there will be no limit. Okay, but basically, you would just create a business rule that said once you had X number of associated catalog requested items against a certain request, you could prevent them. You would put a message on screen saying you have reached your limit. Okay, so that would have to be done by some basic scripting. You can do what's called catalog client scripts, which will allow you to surface messages on the screen when people are interacting with the catalog. So short answer is yes. The long answer is you would have to look at a script. What we can do is, if I just make a note here, I'm just doing this now. What I'll do is, if there's any good examples of those types of scripts, I'll reach out to some colleagues and see if I can look for an example for you there, James, okay? So I'm just making a note. Excuse me while I do this, guys. But yeah, great question, James. Certainly something that you would expect some people might like to do. The other thing is, remember, in the workflows, you can have approvals. Obviously, if somebody did go ahead and order too many items, their manager could reject that and ask them to reorder with less items. But if you want to hard code that, as it were, into the system, that might be a way to look at that. Miranda, if you had a standard change within tasks, how does this fit in this service catalog tasks? I hope you can order a standard change in the service catalog. Are the standard change tasks the same or different from service catalog tasks? Ah, right, yes. What you would need there is, Miranda, a record producer. Let's just have a look. We might not have an example in here, but again, you could do this. You could just create standard change, okay, from here. Actually, you've got emergency change. Let's take a look at this one. What is the affected CI on the system? That will create a record in a change request table, and that will then just follow the standard change request workflows. Okay, so underlying this, you can have any tables that you like receiving records from service catalog record producers. Okay, so those wouldn't be service catalog tasks per se, Miranda. They would just be kicking off standard, or in this case, emergency change. Any workflows associated with that would create those necessary tasks. Okay, so those tasks associated to changes wouldn't be typical service catalog tasks, but they would just be tasks for change requests. And a user can see that workflow, yes, if you allow them to have visibility of that using what we call workflow stages. Okay, so those ones that we saw earlier on service catalog items or requests where workflow stages, that is a special kind of field that gives that feedback to the end user. If I just go back to my knowledge, I'll just show you that you can have those in other areas as well. I think it was on my... we don't have it here. You can show the stages field, basically. You could show that and have a module where people could see the My Change Requests and see what stage they were. So it would require a little bit of customization, but certainly possible. Okay, great questions, guys. And yes, this is what I was kind of hoping to show you guys from knowledge base, but these are those stages. So the stage field takes the workflow stage as configured in the workflow, displays that in this graphical format. Okay. And as we drop through the workflow, we'll just see that passing through. And you can configure these stages yourself. You can have any number of stages against those different tables, those workflows that you build. So to create new items, we have a module called Maintain Items. Once that item has been built, you add the variables to it, and you can set the workflow that is going to fulfill any orders against that particular item. Just publish that to the service catalog of your choice, and then allow people to order it, subject to any user criteria that you put against that service catalog. So obviously not everybody will see everything. And adding variables, this allows you to add questions, choices, etc., which will actually specify the finer details of what that person is ordering. Okay. So there's quite a few variable types. Here's a few examples: multiple choice, select box, etc. You can even use a reference field. So maybe you can store the values that you want them to choose from in a table. They can only select from that limited number of choices. Variable sets we've mentioned, allowing reusability of variables. And our order field is mentioned here specifically. Remember, we did note it earlier when we were looking at our transform maps, but the order field is used in catalog items to display the order that you see variables within your service catalog item. So an item with 100 order displays first in the list. An item with 200 would display second. So these are just integers. Miranda, where does the SC task land? It goes to the support group. Ah, yes, great question, Miranda. How do we tell the system? This is all done in the workflow activity. Okay, so once we've completed this section, we'll move on to workflows, Miranda. So hopefully at that stage it will all be clarified. But the short answer is you specify that in the workflow. Then it will land in the queue. Remember, all of our fulfillers in baseline, we have service desk. So this would be our application for fulfillers. They would get it in their group's work. Okay. If that search catalog or any other task was assigned to them, it would appear in my group's work. Once they've assigned it to themselves, in other words, pull it off the queue, would then appear in my work. Okay, so these modules are filtered dynamically according to whoever is logged in. Okay, the moment I'm logged in as sysadmin, sysadmin is not a fulfiller, so we don't see tasks. Okay, but when we come to workflows, you'll see simply a question of specifying which group you want to fulfill the order for that particular catalog item. There is also the availability of something quite cool called an order guide. This allows you to order a set of catalog items. Okay, imagine you had a new hire coming into your department and you were the manager. What you don't want to do is go on the catalog and try to get them separately, a laptop, and only certain laptops are allowed in your department, so you've got to search through to get the correct one. Then they're allowed a certain kind of phone, maybe a headset, maybe some apparel or whatever you want them to order. What you can do to make their lives easier is set up an order guide. So the order guide uses what we call a rule base. So depending on the answer to certain questions, it will take them through a little guided set of screens that will say, okay, what department are you in? What department is this person joining? If they're joining IT, we're going to give them a MacBook Pro. If they're joining sales, we'll give them a MacBook Air. So essentially, you can guide them through to only get those items that they are supposed to order. So these are pretty cool. Have a look at these. Very easy to set up. Okay, so just going to do a quick demo here, and I'll let you guys do the lab. So what I want to do for my Cloud Dimensions people is allow them to order a iPad mini from the service catalog. Okay, so all I'm going to do is set up the item for now, and in our next section we'll have a look at how we can set up a workflow to get that delivered to them. Okay, so let's just go to Service Catalog. If I type Service Catalog, because I am admin, I should have quite a few options here. Catalogs. I've got Service Catalog and Technical Catalog. You can see the catalog here. I've got all my open requests, requested items and tasks related to the Service Catalog. And here's where I maintain catalogs themselves. Maintain catalogs, maintain categories, and what I'm looking for is maintain items, because I'm actually going to create a new item now for my iPad mini. So just create new. I'm going to call this SQ iPad mini, just so I can quickly find it later. And I need to choose the catalog I want to put it into. I'm going to just put it into my Service Catalog under the category Hardware. Okay. And this is the key field where I will put my workflow. I don't have a workflow written for delivering an iPad mini yet. Okay. Let's have a look. I've got Service Catalog Item Request. That's one that already exists. I could use this, but I'm actually just going to leave it blank for the time being. Okay. Once we've had a look at workflow, I will come back and choose the appropriate workflow. So short description is going to be iPad mini, and a longer description, I'll just put like an iPad. Okay, only smaller. Okay, but you get the idea, guys. Give a good description. I've actually got a picture of an iPad mini. There is one on the knowledge base. You could get one off Google Images if you like, or get it from our knowledge base. Let me just add the picture. It's going to look a little bit better. And and I've got it already downloaded here, that iPad mini. And obviously, if I am using prices, I can put the price here. Remember that cart can be configured to remove pricing, but in my example, I'm going to just put $299. And this other field here, I can just move my windows. Recurring price would be if we had something like phone, and that was the phone contract recurring every month. Okay. And James is saying, can you set an activation time for a new item? Great question. Just having a look if we have such a field. Don't have that on the form, but always best to have a look. Let me check. Let me just save the item first. So we don't have something called activation time. I'm just wondering if there's a field called available from, or delivery time is an estimated delivery time, so it wouldn't be that one. So it looks like we don't have that in baseline, James. Obviously, if you wanted to create items and surface them later, this field here, active, if that's not checked, it will not be active. So what you could do is set a little business rule saying, check this box once the activation date has been reached, and then add a field called activation date. Okay, so again, that would be customization. And have a look on the community. Other people might already have done such a customization. But obviously, manually, you could switch these on and off. But yeah, great idea. So where am I here? I am got my price. Let me just save that because I want to see my variables. Just make a single variable for you guys to see. So here I have my variables, create a new one. And what we're going to do is just allow people to choose the color of their iPad. So let's give them a multiple choice. Got all these other fields. I'm going to go for multiple choice. And then I need to ask the question, what color would you like? So in the question tab, what color iPad mini would you like? Now this name here is the name of this variable. So I'm going to call it color. This could be used later to contain whatever value people have selected. So we could evaluate that if we were doing a order guide. So maybe if I ordered a white iPad, I could then get a white iPad cover to go with it. Okay. And if you needed some extra description for your variable, you can do that. I think what color is fairly straightforward. Let me just submit that. Now, gone back to the catalog item, but notice I did not put my choices. Okay, if I'm doing a multiple choice, just going to open this back up. Once I've saved that, I will get these question choices related list. So here's where I put all my answers here. What color would you like? So first option is going to be black. So text that will be seen and the name of that variable, black. if this has an extra cost in addition to the standard, so if we have a gold iPad, maybe it's going to cost us an extra £50. We can add that here. But stick with the original $299. I think that's what I priced it at. And let's just go for one more option, which is white. Okay, so hopefully you get the idea. You can set up these variable questions. I've just got that single one. Just going to put a question mark there, guys. Then update and return to my catalog item. Just checking my price. And let's try it. So you can have a preview. This is what it's going to look like once it's on the catalog. Okay. If I was to order that now, obviously no workflow is associated. What it would use is what a legacy execution path. If I just show you, if you're wondering what that was on the form, we just go back to catalog item. This execution plan here, this is a legacy field from versions where we didn't have workflows. So as soon as you specify a workflow in here, a little UI policy will hide that, okay? But whilst I haven't got that in, it would use this default execution plan. So I'm not going to concern myself at the moment with that. I've set up my item. What remains for me to do in the next section will be to add the associated workflow. So setting up items with variables is pretty straightforward, guys. Hopefully you can add as much detail and feedback for the end users using all these variables, variable sets, obviously reusable across different items. So that concludes the demonstration, guys. So you are going to have a go at the lab. 4.2. Go ahead and set up your own catalog item. Probably going to take you 15-20 minutes. So let's go for reconvening. Let's build in a coffee break, okay, because once we're done with this, I'm just going to be talking to